All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are bringing you our guide for the 2022 USBC Open Championships arsenal building. All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, click the bell to get alerts. Check out our merch shop on Etsy.
On all the socials, make sure you follow us on FaceBase, the Tweet Machine, and Instagram, as we're on all three of those.
In this video, we are going to be talking about how to build your arsenal for the 2022 USBC Open Championships.
We're going to give you guys an inside look on what our players are going to use, how we're going to use these bowling balls, when, and how to kind of, get a little bit more insight on the lane, so that way you guys can make better choices out there, so you can score higher and maybe compete with us, the big dogs.
We did finish 95th last year. Might not sound amazing, but that was out of 7,000 teams.
7,609 with a total score of 3,140.
Anthony is very excited about it. So while you're at it, though, don't forget, check out our commentary on that performance from last year, which you can check out right here. I don't know if I'm hitting it, but it'll pop up. So click that, and you can check out that performance with our commentary. And let's get right into it here. Let's see how we built, maybe not built our arsenal, but how we're going to decide to build our arsenal, because we have a little bit of time before we head out there. But we know some people are getting ready and amped up to get out there now. So how do we build the arsenal, starting out with practice through the rest of the day when it comes to the team play, and who your players are, etc. So let's get right into it. How do we start?
Let's get weird. So as we start off, we've got our three big balls right here. We've got a Rotogrip Gem 8 Brunswick Quantum Evo Solid and a new Brunswick Defender. Basically, when you go out to these events, you're probably going to have, a lot more oil than you're used to in league play, a lot crisper back ends. Usually there's about 28, 29 milliliters of oil out there. Roughly last year there was a little bit less, but COVID year, so we're going to take that out of play. Don't remember anything from last year because we think it's going to go back to what it was. So we're going to start with those balls, the Gem, the Quantum Evo Solid, and the Defender. Reason being, as you can all tell, even though Kyle's is a little dirty, we've got all solid surfaces here.
Solid, big,
matted,
traction
very
balls.
strong traction bowling balls. These balls want to use their energy earlier on that lane to take out the back end, so that way you get a little bit more hook through the oil. When there is that much oil out there, as we've talked about it on our podcast, it's really important you get that ball to slow down in the right spot, or you're going to see too much angle off the back of the pattern, and that often is a key. You're in the wrong ball, or your surface isn't correct.
Right. Now, the important aspect of this is the ball is not the only answer. You get the ball, that's great. Bring it to your pro shop operator and get the correct layout for you for your game. So it depends on your tilt, your roll, all that good stuff. You want to make sure it's laid out just for you.
So, but this is what I would bring for a lot of my players. A Track Paragon, another great ball. A Track Strata, if you can still get it. They're all in that realm here. These balls are going to control that friction. Kyle prefers the lower intermediate diffs. We won't get too much into the rabbit hole here, but balls with surface 500, 1,000 balls are going to create more traction is what you're going to want. This ball is going to go in, let's see, practice. For us, we're going to use it in practice. The cover stocks also create a wider footprint because they're the stronger ones, so they're going to eat up a little bit more oil. So you're going to be able to deplete the oil in the middle part of the lane. You're not going to touch as much down lane, but the goal is to create more friction up front so you can get the ball to slow down easier. These three will definitely do that, as they are monster hook balls. These guys want oil, so they're gonna also absorb that oil as fast as possible.
Practice, and then probably the first few frames of the game.
Right, if not the whole game, depending on who you are.
It depends on your team, and then also the team that you're
companion coding with, or who you're crossing with.
Right, exactly. All right, so now we've talked about the high traction surface balls. Now when do we start to transition?
So it depends on the player. I'm trying to think. I believe everybody used asymmetricals in game one except for you last year out there. So, when you're going to go transition to these symmetricals, your symmetricals don't create that as sharp defined hook shape because they are using their energy a little bit differently. They're going to give you more a rounded hook shape. They're going to look like there's a longer hook zone for it. So these balls are going to come into play. They also can come into play in the fresh, but mostly they come into play when there's a little bit more friction out there. These balls because they're symmetrical weight blocks, will give you a little bit more length typically, depending on surface and all that. But just if everything's the same, they're weaker weight blocks typically, just because they're symmetrical. So they give you that little extra length. So they will control the lane. They'll give you a little more cleanliness, so you won't get that early pickup and that really down lane where it won't hook down lane. You leave a lot of flat tens. This ball will give you a little bit more juice when you're moving in a little bit, and you've got that defined friction there. Kyle typically chooses a phase 2. I would choose a knockout black blue. This is probably one of my favorite balls right now. It really picks up and it controls that mid lane really nicely, and that's what you're going to be looking for as these ones start to get a little bit too much, or if you see a little bit too much friction early on.
Yeah, if you're starting to be lazy down lane,
right,
lazy in the pocket,
right,
typically means you need to start moving in,
right,
and get a little bit more angle,
right,
and a little bit more strength in the back end.
Right, these will continue better for you as you move left, as those ones will use their energy a little bit faster in a shorter amount of time and roll a little bit more forward. Now, I'm not saying you can't strike, but typically most of our players will go to these. If people for weaker hands, they can go to a Rubicon by Rotogrip, or possibly a Obsession Tour, possibly, depending on who you are. But most of our players, Joey, they might go into a symmetrical piece just to get a little bit of a different entry angle to that pocket.
All right. What's our third piece going to be now?
Third piece.
We're moving along in the day.
We're starting to move along in the day. We're starting to look for a little bit different. Players are starting to move left a little bit. If you don't really want to move left a little bit, you want to try and stay in that spot where the friction is starting to begin to develop. We're going to go into the transitional pieces here. So what we're going to look at is Altered Reality and a Quantum Evo. Those balls are your asymmetrical pearl pieces. They are higher on the scale of intermediate differential than the other ones. I believe the altered is very similar to our gem here, but we've got a pearl cover stock. The quantum is probably the highest asymmetrical block out of these two here, what we've shown you. So that ball is going to give you the hardest flip off the back end of the pattern. But what we're looking for here is cleanliness through the front part of the lane. We have developed hopefully a little bit of friction, but we don't want to really try to get left yet. We still want to kind of keep our angles a little bit more closed. For us, some guys might skip over the symmetrical pieces and go into these because they're going to keep them around the same part of the around the same area with that same kind of hook shape, except it's going to get a little bit cleaner through the front part of the lane. It's going to skid a little bit better through that friction spot to give you a little bit more energy down lane. So those balls would probably be game 2.5, 2.5, depending on your play style. So this would be our big asymmetrical pearl piece. To get us a little bit more entry angle down lane.
So as we're moving from 2.5 into 3,
yeah.
Now where are we going?
That's when it gets kind of interesting because it all depends on how that lane has really broke down the
right.
lane. We're gonna guess we did it right.
Yeah.
The way we like to do it, where we create a lot of free back end with a little bit more friction up front. So
when
it's
he
not
says
too
we,
free.
he means us righties. He's all out on an island by himself.
I'm just the guy who pulls the strings. What you're gonna go to here is, we've seen a lot of good stuff with this high rev 3D offset. It is a remake from back in the day. It's still that resin cover, that blazing violet color. We've seen this ball be really good when there's a lot of friction. It's not as strong as I thought it was going to be. So this ball is actually going to be probably a step down from these two pieces here. It's got a more symmetrical core, so it's going to be a little weaker at the fine hook shape. But when we see a lot of friction on these lanes, because it's got those pearl additives in it, we've seen a lot of great success. We've seen a bunch of people be able to get the ball around the corner, but it's controlled around the corner. So this ball has been a really good piece. Other two balls we would possibly go to, this is kind of like the outlier here. We're going to go to some weaker equipment here. GB4, Phase 4, GB4 Pearl, I should say. The IQ Tour, I guess, but that's also kind of like a transitional piece. It kind of fits over here, but it's just a different, it's probably the weakest ball we've got up here, so we kind of left it in its own little place down here. But the GB4 Pearl and the Phase 4, reason being they're both pearls, so you're going to get a lot of length out of these balls. They've got some stronger symmetrical cores in them. Just remember, symmetrical cores are always weaker than those asymmetrical cores. So we're going to see more continuation out of these balls than we will with these ones, because asymmetrics tend to roll a little more forward. So when we move in, for me, if I've got to move in, which isn't very far because I'm left-handed, but from what we've seen, with our players, also a Zen could go up here. The Zen is very popular from last year. Awesome ball. We've actually got 3 of them over there for our team alone.
Yep.
Guys are gonna drill some Zens, but phase 4 and GB4, just because they're gonna really get through the middle part of the lane as we move left. They're not gonna see the middle as well, and they're really gonna give us some good pop down lane without being overreactive off that friction down there. So we'll get a lot of continuation out of these. This is game 3. These balls really, I don't really see these coming out in game 2, in game 2.5. No way in game 1, because there's just not enough. There's not enough teeth. There's not enough surface on these bowling balls to get us to get that ball on a roll the right way. These balls are going to be for late game blocks. They're the later block of our session out there. Kyle will probably throw a melee red. A melee blue also goes in there, and a Zen. Those are probably that line right there.
So before we get to our last 2, let's do a quick review here. So we got the
we've got your big asymmetrical.
Asym surfaced.
Yeah, your big
That's
traction
number
ball.
1. Big traction.
Your big traction
number
ball.
1. Then we move to our starting to transition. We've got still benchmarky, surfaced, symmetrical.
All-purpose benchmark piece.
Yep. Then number 3 in the bag. Again, we've got a 6-ball arsenal here. We're starting to go to less surface, more pearl, maybe.
More pearl cover stocks.
Yep.
Maybe not less surface necessarily, but different cover stocks. Instead of the solids where they want to create that traction, we're going to go to a pearl cover where it's going to give us a little bit more length out of the lane, but hopefully stay in that same location. So then we go into your
number 4.
Your 4th ball, which is your symmetrics, or your even weaker asymmetric, which is that 3D offset, or a Rubicon UC2. So these balls are going to be kind of your late block, your late session, game 3. These balls there's most friction on the lane. These balls are going to come into play because they're not going to see it as much. Give you the best chance to move left and give you that great continuation around the corner and get those 10s out.
So number 5, you kind of get like
a wild card.
Yeah, you kind of get
you
kind of get like your pick of the litter, like maybe your favorite benchmark ball.
What would you go with? Ball 5 without these balls here? What would you put in the bag? And don't put any urethane in there you could. What would you go with ball 5?
I mean, my favorite ball ever is the Hitman Enforcer by DV8. So like, it's almost a guarantee to go. So I just has to go.
So his ball 5 is a hybrid, believe it or not, which we haven't talked about.
That's true.
Some players like hybrids, strata hybrid, collisions, stuff that's going to they could kind of fit in that altered reality quantum evo spot. But for us, we went with the pearl ones because they were on the wall. Anything that's got a little bit of shine to it, or a hybrid piece that's not too strong up front, a Nova and a Zenith hybrid, I wouldn't recommend in that spot because they overlap the stronger pieces a little too much. But if you're looking at like let's say a Parallax, I know they don't make it anymore, a Parallax, because that's the first one that comes to mind, or a Collision or a Strata hybrid, those are the balls that have a little bit weaker covers, it seems like, that are a little bit more sheened, I should say. So they'll give you a little bit more length. They could also fit in this spot here.
Now, the only hiccup with the number 5 ball that you could run into is if you want your urethane ball in there plus your spare ball.
Right.
And not sharing the 2. So let's get into either number 5 or if you're somebody that uses your urethane as a spare ball. Yeah. But anyway, let's talk about the urethane ball here.
Right. So we've got 2 up here. We've got the 6 or 7 series Purple Hammer. Not really.
Just kidding.
This is a newer one. So we've got this one here. I use a U-Motion. My U-Motion is up here. I do have another one we will drill before we go to Nationals. Not necessarily to use, but a spare ball. I mean, I might not even get rid of this one. It is getting beat up. But this ball doubles as a spare ball and a strike ball for me, as I am the lefty specialist on the team. So, my bag will consist much differently than what the righties will look like, because I have to shot make out there. I'll probably bring 3 urethanes and 3 resins out there. It'll be a little bit different for me, but this will double for me. If you really want, you can double your Purple Hammer as your spare ball. It's not my favorite thing to do because I don't like to get that ball close to the gutter. I'd rather throw it at strikes. I don't want to nick in that ball. But a lot of guys choose to go with a Purple Hammer, a Double Cross, or a Pink Widow. If you're looking for a strike ball, it's up to you. And then your other ball that we have here is an IQ Tour. Reason being, it is a low diff, low RG ball. It's not going to hook a whole lot, but it's going to give you a decent look no matter what you bowl on. It's a bailout ball. your slot 5 should be your bailout ball, your most confident ball if it's already not in your bag.
Which for me last year, it's exactly what the purple was. I used the purple for 2 whole games. So I shot 180 and 210.
Right.
So that I was completely content with that. And then I only had to use 2 balls. Most of us only used 2-3 balls last year. But that was, again, because there was not a lot of breakdown in 2021.
Right.
2022, we believe, is going to be a lot different.
They're getting back to 10 players on a pair. They're going to make a little more volume on the lane.
Would you say that just about does it?
I mean, if you really want to talk about the lefties, we can give a quick rundown for them. Just make sure you bring a pink, a purple, a double cross, a U-motion, and then just bring 2 other balls with you. Or just bring 2 2-ball totes with you into the airport. It'll be a lot less money for you to fly out there. So make sure you get the Lefty Specialist bag. We'll put it on Etsy. You know, we'll tell you what your thing wants to bring and how to adjust on the lane for that.
All right, guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, click the bell to get alerts, and always visit our merch shop on Etsy. And always
make sure to get us on the socials.
Yeah, hit us up on Facebook, Instagram,
Tweet
Twitter.
Machine, Instagrams. You know,
there you go.
You got it. And make sure to tune in 7 p.m. every Thursday until bowling season's over.
That's right.
Because we're going to have to start taking our break and get ready on Thursdays because that's getting ready for Nationals time.
Night.
But make sure you tune in because we're going to start talking about it a little bit more, and you get some hot topics of the week in PBA.
Absolutely. All right, guys. We'll see you soon. Peace.